Commission regular meeting, December 10th, 2019. If I could have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We will proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Guerrero. Present. Commissioner Lopez. Here. Commissioner Sanchez.
Present.
Commissioner Keel. Here. Commissioner Liang. Absent. Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Wolbert. Here. Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Jaramillo. And Mr. Mojica.
Present. Thank you.
And we have quorum.
Thank you. Going on to the administration of oath. Is there anyone wishing to speak on a matter that is listed tonight? I see no one wishing to speak or not. Pardon. Yes. Public comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak on an item that is on a matter that is not on the agenda? We do?
Madam Chair, we do have a speaker slip filled out for a Joyce Seeger.
If you want to administer the oath.
Can you please raise your right hand?
Item number 2. Am I supposed to? We have another speaker.
Oh, okay. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
I'm not sure it's testimony, though. So I'm Joyce Seeger, president of Blair Park Neighborhood Association. And we have an issue along with Muscoobiabe Neighborhood Association that we've been involved in since last July, when we first heard that this TAD welfare building was being built at 27th and Little Mountain Drive. And we don't think it ever came before the Planning Commission. And we feel it should have. We are very appreciative of the city staff and the city council stepping up with the moratorium on the approval of land use entitlements and all license and permit applications, allowing for the operation of public or private social service uses or welfare operations at the location within 750 feet of any residentially zoned property within the city. That was an item on the December 4th City Council agenda that they passed. And we are most sincerely thankful for this action. We do have some questions about this moratorium. We wonder about the timing. Is 45 days long enough to accomplish this, or will it take longer? Will there be community input? We have lost some trust in the city and the Planning Commission because both should have been involved a long time ago. What are the next steps? How will we be involved? Remember that you work for us, the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on an item not listed on tonight's agenda? If not, we will continue on to the consent agenda. Do we have anything from staff?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners, good evening. On the consent calendar tonight, we have the approval of the minutes for the meeting of November the 12th. They are complete as submitted, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Oliver. And if we could also recognize that Commissioner Jones is present as well. Thank you.
If I may also add, Filling in for Stephanie Sanchez today is Charmaine Wilson. She's one of our administrative staff, so we'd like to welcome her as well. Thank you.
Hi, Charmaine. Does the commission have any questions on the approval of minutes? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as read into the record.
A second.
I second.
Yep, second. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. The motion passes. All right. Moving on to public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located on the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give your address for the tape record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed and the Planning Commission will begin deliberation and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and the amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final actions unless an appeal is filed and the fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda, or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. All right. Moving on to item number 2. If we could have the staff report.
Yes, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. Item number 2 is development permit type P1802. The property is located on the south side of South Inland Center Drive, just north of Riverwalk Drive. The staff is going to recommend that we continue this item. We're going to, an item came up, a couple of items have come up since we advertised. We're going to renotice this item, prepare a new staff report, and return this at a future date. We do have a public speaker slip here, Rebecca Davis. I think she would like to speak on this item. First of all, if you would be so kind as to open up the public hearing and so allow Ms. Davis to speak.
Right.
Thank you.
So I hereby open public hearing for item number 2. Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Davis, and I represent Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, including their members that live in and around San Bernardino. We're requesting that the city withdraw the MND and instead prepare an EIR for this project because there is substantial evidence that the project may have a significant and unmitigated environmental impact. As was mentioned, we did submit a written comment as well, and I just want to touch on 2 of the points in that letter, and there's further detail in the letter as well. So first, the MND's analysis of the impacts on biological resources we found to be inadequate. Our ecologist, Dr. Sean Smallwood, visited the project site for about an hour and personally observed and photographed a number of special status species, including a red-tailed hawk, a merlin, a California gull, and a great horned owl. Of particular concern, the MND concluded that the merlin was not likely to occur at the project site, yet Dr. Smallwood actually identified and photographed this species on the site, and that photograph is included in our comments. Based on his site visit, Dr. Smallwood concludes that there's a high likelihood of potential impacts to 47 special status species on the site. Detection surveys are needed to fully analyze the potential impacts to these species. In addition, the MND relies on an improperly deferred mitigation measure, a number of them actually, but for example, mitigation measure Bio 2 states that if roosting bats are found on the project site, CDFW shall be contacted about how to proceed. Courts have over and over again rejected this type of mitigation measure. CEQA does not allow an agency to defer the development of a mitigation measure until sometime after the CEQA process is complete and after the project has already been approved. Specific mitigation measures have to be set forth in the CEQA document so that the public and others can analyze and comment on those mitigation measures. And second, there's substantial evidence found by our expert environmental firm, SWAPE, that the project may have a significant health risk impact. SWAPE reviewed the health risk assessment that was included in the MND and found a number of errors. One of those errors is that it relied on a truck trip rate of 20%, meaning 20% of the vehicles would be trucks. Well, the South Coast Air Quality Management District recommends using a 40% truck trip rate for warehouse projects like this one. And when SWAPE updated the model to correct this and the other errors that we discuss in our letter, they determined that over the course of a residential lifetime, at the nearest sensitive receptor, there is a 260 in 1 million increased risk of cancer, which is 26 times the 10 in a million risk that constitutes the threshold of significance by the South Coast Air Quality Management District. So an EIR is required because SWAPE's analysis constitutes substantial evidence that the project may potentially have an impact on human health by increasing cancer. So to conclude, we request that the Commission decline to approve the MND and instead send the project back to staff to prepare an EIR to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions, if I may. Please. Again, tell me, what is your organization?
It's called Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility.
And where is your administration office located?
The administration office is, I believe, in LA.
Do you have an office here in San Bernardino?
There's not an office in San Bernardino, but we have members in San Bernardino.
Are you representing the agency or community members as well, residents who live there, or people?
Both.
Both?
Yes.
Okay. It says 300 feet north of North Riverwalk Drive. Is that a residential street? Are there residences there?
I believe the closest residence is, if I'm remembering correctly, approximately 25 meters away.
Is how many?
25 meters away, I believe, though
Okay.
that's just off the top of my head.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Oliver, why is this being extended? I'm sorry, an extension to consider at a later date?
We have had some other information that has come up, aside from this, other related matters that, non-related, I should say, that we needed to address.
Do those include what this young lady has stated, or
Partially, yes.
partially? Okay. And what else does it include?
Beg your pardon?
What else are you looking into?
Well, we just received the letter today.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be looking at all of
That's
those
correct.
things. Okay.
Any other questions on this? No? If not, I will entertain a motion to continue this on to the next meeting.
Do we want to do the next meeting?
I make a motion that we continue this item as recommended by the staff because of new information that has come forward until either the next meeting or at a later time that is adequate. Okay?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, and prior to our deliberation on that, I'll close public hearing. And then, all right, I will entertain a motion. I'll entertain a second.
I'll second that motion.
Perfect. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Perfect. Continuing on to item number 3, if we could have the staff report, please.
Yes, can I have the PowerPoint up, please? Or do I have the... I have it right here.
Not the wrong side, the right side.
Good evening, happy holidays. Item number 3 is extension of time 19-11 for conditional use permit 17-09 and public convenience or necessity letter 17-02. The applicant Yum Yum Donut Shop is requesting an extension of time for previously approved conditional use permit 17-09 and public convenience or necessity letter 17-02 for an existing service station and convenience store containing approximately 5,542 square feet. This is the applicant's first extension of time request. The project is located at the northeast corner of Waterman and 5th Street at 515 North Waterman within the Commercial General CG1 zone. CUP 17-09 and PCN 17-02 was previously approved on November 14th, 2017 for an alcoholic beverage control type 20 for off-sale beer and wine license for the existing service station and convenience store containing approximately 5,542 square feet. At the time, the police department's recommendation was for approval based on the information that the alcohol-related crimes within a half-mile radius of the project site is no more than 20% of the city's alcohol-related crime rates. The police department was informed of the extension of time, and the recommendation of approval remains, as the alcohol-related crime rates within the subject area have not changed. The conditions of approval will remain unchanged. The extension of time meets general plan goals and policies in being that the applicant filed 30 days prior to the expiration of the entitlement, filed for a good cause, and the extension complies with all the current development code provisions. The extension of time also meets mayor and common council goals and policies by utilizing city programs to reduce crime and ensure that neighborhoods and business areas are safe per general plan goal 2.2.9. The proposed project also meets all development standards. Here we have the location map of the existing site. We have the aerial map. This is the site looking north towards Ward Street. This is the site looking south towards West 5th Street. This is the site looking east towards Cooley Street. And this is the continued east. This is the site plan. We have Ward, North Waterman, 5th Street, Cooley. And our recommendation today is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-065, adopting the categorical exemption and approving extension of time 19-11 for conditional use permit 17-09 and public convenience or necessity letter 17-02 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Thank you. I can take any questions. I don't know if the applicant is present. He can answer any questions as well.
Perfect, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I hereby open public hearing for item number 3. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
There is a correction. The resolution number is 2019-073, not 065. That was a typo.
I have some questions. What are the two streets that border that empty lot?
That border the empty lot?
Yeah.
We have Ward and 5th, Wards to the north, 5th Streets to the south. We have Cooley to the east and North Waterman to the west.
Okay. And the reason for the extension is why?
There was financial issues. There was a lack of a contractor, and the standards with Public Works that they were working out, which they have, came to an agreement.
And is the applicant here? Yes. What's happening and what are you doing about it?
Good afternoon. My name is Ahmad Gaderi with ANS Engineering on behalf of Yum Yum Donuts. As the staff indicated, there were financing we had to procure, which has been done. Building permit has been issued. We've picked up our building permit. Contractors, of course, with the economy, humming so fast, we've had some challenges picking up contractor, but one has been chosen. Mm-hmm. And so we're ready to start the project, but we just wanted to make sure that we have the extension of the CUP.
Mm-hmm. This was approved a year ago?
This was approved in,
2 years.
It was approved January 20th of 2016.
Of what?
January 20th of 2016.
Of 2016.
17.
Okay, so
17.
it's 2 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. The CUP 17-09 and PCN 17-02 was approved on November 14th, 2017.
And are you the owner?
I'm the architect of the project.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It says here owner is Yum Yum Donut Shop. It's a convenience store, a gas station,
Yes.
and the Yum Yum
Well,
Donut?
the C-store itself is almost 80% just the donut shop.
Okay.
That they have a small area of, sales area for retail, for convenience store.
Is it all in one building, the Yum Yum Donut shop
Yes.
and the convenience?
Yes, it's all one.
So when did the Yum Yum want to sell alcohol alongside their donuts? When did that happen?
It's part of the convenience store merchandise we sell in convenience store.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we're not approving this at this time. It's being requested to extend. Oh, well, no.
No,
This was approved. It was approved. It's just an extension of a time. Okay. Well, nowadays they sell alcohol at the cinema theater. So when did this happen?
but it's part of the
Tell
convenience.
Yum Yum, that's not the place to go. That's not the way to go. Anyway, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? If not, I will hereby close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye, or oppose.
So the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4. We could have the staff report, please.
Good evening. Yes, item number 4 is subdivision 18-17 and development permit type P 18-8. The proposed project is to subdivide a parcel, tentative tract map 20258, containing approximately 1.06 acres, to subdivide into 6 single-family residential lots. The lots will be comprised of minimum 7,206 square feet to 10,019 square feet, and to construct 5 single-family residences with 2-car garages. The project site is located at 575 North Meridian Avenue within the residential suburban zone. The development of the site will consist of constructing 2-story homes with a porch area containing approximately 2,272 square feet. It would be consisting of 2 models, and I will show you the models in the upcoming slides. The 2-car garage will be 455 square feet. The style of the development will be contemporary Spanish-style design with warm colors, and they will provide drought-tolerant landscaping, such as fescue grass, mulch, boxwood, and sunset rose shrubs. Here's a location map of the area of the property. Currently, right now, on the property itself, there's already an existing single-family 2-story home. They're going to keep that existing single-family home, and then when they do the subdivision on those additional lots, they will construct the 5 additional homes. This is an aerial map of the existing site. As you can see, it is surrounded by single-family development within the area, so it meets that requirement for a general plan, as well as our development code requirements for zoning. This is the existing site on North Meridian Avenue. This is the existing single-family home. It's a 2-story home. The other homes that will be developed would be developed in the same type of architectural type and materials as well. And this is the existing site looking on North Meridian Drive. This is the site plan of the existing site. As you can see to the north of the site, that's where we have the existing home right here. And then the other additional homes will be constructed subsequently in their own individual lots. The lots, there's 2 models, and the models will deviate, so that way it creates some architectural variation amongst each of the whole development itself of those 5 homes. This is the floor plan for Model A. As you can see, you have your kitchen facilities, dining room, living family area as well, and living area with the two-car garage, and then you have your bedrooms on the second floor of the model. This is the floor plan for Model B. There's going to be, as you see, a deviation in the location of the garage, so that way that creates that architectural variation aesthetically on the exterior, and then with the living facilities on the second floor. Here we have the elevations for Model A. It's, as I mentioned before, a contemporary Spanish style, architectural stucco, so it's going to be compatible with the surrounding properties. And this is for Model B. This is the proposed landscaping. So they're going to have, as I mentioned, fescue grass here at the front with some other types of drought-tolerant landscapings on the sides of the property. So the recommendation for the Planning Commission is to adopt resolution number 2019-04, finding the categorical exemption and approving subdivision 18-17, tentative track map for 20258, and development permit type P 18-08 based on findings of fact and subject to the conditions, recommended conditions of approval. And if you have any questions, the applicant's here to answer any of your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
At this time, I will open public hearing for item number 4. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? I actually do have a question. The proposed houses or homes like that, they're going to be 2 stories. Are the surrounding homes 2 stories as well?
Some of the surrounding homes are 2 stories, some of them are single-story homes. So there is a variation in that. I think the proposal for this one is because the existing home that's already on the lot is a 2-story home, so they just wanted to maintain that consistency throughout the site itself. But there is a variation. There is surrounding residential that is 1 story as well.
I just make this comment because from the plans and even checking the square footage, the houses are going to be quite small and they'll be quite snug together. So you don't want people like looking over into their neighbors, especially since.
Yes, and we do understand that. So they do have some setback requirements between the other properties. Here, for example, there is currently an existing sewer main line running through the center of the property. So in order for sewer to be able to access that existing main line, they required a roadway of about 12 feet to be able to access to the south of this property right here. So there is that variation in setback, and then some of the setbacks are a minimum of 7 feet in variation from property to property. So that way they're not able to oversee onto the other neighbors. So we are conscious of that as well.
And that's also towards the other homes that are existing already there.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this item? Oh.
There's someone here.
Yes, sir. Other? If you would like to come up.
Mm-hmm.
If you could state your name and address for the record. Have you been sworn in?
No, he is not.
No?
My name is Javier. This is my wife, and this is Sarah.
Okay.
Is I living?
If we could actually swear you in before you.
Okay.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand, please?
And I live in
No,
20
raise,
Can you raise your right hand? Yeah, we're just going to swear you in really quick. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
Yeah. And my question is, I speak English a little bit, it's not 100%. And my wife is speaking Spanish. This is our owner of the house. This is living in 2386 and Victoria Street in San Bernardino. And she needed a translator for my wife, for this planning without this paper is coming to my house. And so I need a translator for the stand 100% what will happen. Just somebody speaking Spanish, translator for
Yes, speak to legal.
Sir, are you asking to say something that you would like someone to translate, or are you asking
Yeah,
for someone,
somebody translate.
or are you asking for someone to translate the paper in your hand?
Ah, okay.
¿Cuál estás diciendo? ¿Que alguien
Alguien
traduzca
traduzca lo que
para
están
que
hablando,
que
lo
quiere decir o lo que dice el papel?
No, lo que están diciendo ahorita, porque en este papel hay 500 pies de la propiedad de nosotros. Nada más que quiero estar seguro lo que están hablando para entender qué es lo que está
Okay.
pasando.
Yeah, so he's looking
Yeah.
for someone to translate of all the discussion that we're having for this item, because they live within 500 feet.
Are we able
And I
to
think he
say
said
it
the
in
lady
Spanish,
owns
or
the
was
house.
that something that?
So we could try and do it, ad hoc. I don't know how you guys have handled this before. You haven't handled this before.
Okay.
We could try to do it ad hoc. I speak
Perfect.
Spanish. Oliver, do you speak Spanish? Yeah.
I speak
And-
Spanish, so.
Entre familia, we'll do it. Well, we've had discussions so far up to this point, right? The presentation. Señor, ¿usted comprendió la presentación o no?
Pero no al 100%, por eso le digo que necesitaba
Okay.
alguien.
Okay. Is there
Sorry.
is there a way that we could do the presentation again in Spanish? Is that possible? Are you able to do that?
Okay.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, va a repetir la presentación en español para
Sí.
usted.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Just be a little bit more patient with me on my translation. Okay. Bienvenidos a la presentación de ahora es para presentar el proyecto para de subdivisión de 1817 en relación al desarrollo con el desarrollo del permiso tipo P 18-08. La propuesta del proyecto es para subdividir la parcela. El mapa es el número 20258 a 1.06 acres. La propuesta es para subdividir la propiedad entre 6 lotes residenciales, consistiendo de mínimo 7,206 pies cuadrados a 10,019 pies cuadrados, y construir 5 viviendas residenciales con un garage de 2 vehículos. La propiedad está localizada en 575 de la calle Meridian, designación Norte, Avenida, y está localizado en una zona suburbana residencial. El proyecto va a consistir de casas construidas de 2 pisos con un porche. Los pies cuadrados de las propiedades van a tener 2,272 pies cuadrados, y luego también van a tener un garage para 2 vehículos que va a consistir de 455 pies cuadrados. El estilo de la propiedad es un estilo contemporáneo con designación arquitectura española. También van a tener yarda consistiendo de zacate, consistiendo de también hierbas pequeñas. La propiedad está localizada, como ven, en una zona residencial en donde se encuentra una propiedad ya existente de 2 pisos, y que ya tiene un garage para 2 vehículos. Aquí tenemos una área de la propiedad en donde se encuentran donde se encuentra rodeada por casas de 1 piso y de 2 pisos también, en una vecindad residencial. Esta es la propiedad viendo por la calle Meridian, y ya, como pueden ver, ya tiene una casa existente de 2 pisos con un garage para 2 vehículos. Y esta es la propiedad viendo por la calle Marvin, designación norte. Aquí está el plano de lo que se va a desarrollar en la propiedad. Como ven, aquí se encuentra la propiedad existente y consecutivamente se encuentran las otras propiedades anotadas aquí. Van a ser en completo 6 lotes. Van a ser 2 tipos de modelos. Este modelo, como ven, tiene el garage designado en esta parte de la propiedad y tiene todo la área como la cocina, la sala designado en el primer piso y en el segundo piso se encuentran los cuartos para dormir. Este es el modelo B. En el modelo B, como ve, el garage lo han cambiado para poder crear una variación en la arquitectura exterior de las propiedades. Y aquí se encuentra la cocina, la sala y la entrada a la vivienda y luego con los cuartos en el segundo piso. Esta es la modelo A, esta es la elevación de cómo se va a ver la arquitectura de ese modelo. Y es el modelo B y esta va a ser la arquitectura del modelo B. Y aquí se encuentra la recomendación en relación a tipo de yarda que se va a poner en la propiedad para que sea compatible con las residencias alrededor. Y con eso la recomendación para la Comisión de Planificación es que adopten la resolución número 2019-074 y encontrar el proyecto exento a el medio ambiente, California Environmental Quality Act. Sorry, that's not translatable. Y aprobar la subdivisión 1817, número de mapa 20258 y aprobar el proyecto de desarrollo tipo P 18-08 basado en la información presentada y con las recomendaciones de condiciones para la aprobación del proyecto.
Señor, ¿comprendió? Sí, muchas gracias a la planeadora. Si quiere hacer una pregunta, por favor.
Si quiere subir. Si puede decir su nombre y luego también su dirección.
Sí. Mi nombre es Javier, 2683 Victoria Street. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué pasaría con la casa que es de nosotros? Tiene que ser... ¿qué va a pasar con la casa? ¿Me la van a cortar los 500 feet y me van a dejar mocha la casa o qué voy a hacer?
Su dirección, ¿cuál es su dirección?
2683 Victoria Street.
And so, just for the record, he's asking, what's going to happen to his house? What's going to happen, is the 500 feet going to shrink between his house and the development? That was the question.
No, señor, eso no afecta a su propiedad. Nosotros tenemos una póliza, una ley, en donde tenemos que proveer una notificación a propietarios que se encuentran en 500 pies de un proyecto. Entonces, como su propiedad se encuentra en 500 pies del proyecto que estoy presentando, por eso usted recibió esa notificación para que usted esté prevenido de la información en relación al proyecto que va a ser presentado y pueda venir a hacer comentario como está ahorita y saber que va a haber algo desarrollándose en esa propiedad.
Muchas gracias.
For the record, can you do that again in English, please?
Yes. So, yes. So I won't translate it, be able to translate it word by word, but the public hearing item, the notice that was sent out was not for his property to shrink within the 500 feet. It was more to notify that we have to do a notification per our law, per California Environmental Quality Act, in which we have to notify property owners of any item that is being brought for public hearing that are located within 500 feet of any project site. Since this property is located within 500 feet of his property, then he received that notification that there was going to be a project and that it was open for public hearing, and he can come and speak on that item or to be aware that there is going to be this type of development within his area. I think I covered that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Commissioner Wilbur? Yes.
Yeah, when will this start approximately, and when will it be complete?
I have the applicant here. Yes, and you're the representative for the, yes. If you want to come to the front, please. Yeah.
If you could
They
come
would
up
have
and
a little
state your
bit more
name.
information on when the start date. I know they were really hurried to get the project going. There were some concerns as it relates to the fact that there is an existing city main line running through the middle of the property. So we had to address those concerns with the water department, as well as additional erosion control concerns that land development had. So we had to address all those concerns prior to bringing the project forward. Those have been addressed with both of those departments and division. So I know at that time, they were really hurried. They wanted to get the project moving and forward, but she can probably provide you maybe a time frame of when they would start submitting plans.
If I could have you state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeanette Okada. I'm representing the owner, RGC Family Trust. The plan is to start the project sometimes in April, and then we're hoping to finish within a year. But, you know, given the situation, we don't know how long it might take with the building safety kind of stuff. So that's the plan. Probably a year.
Through the chair, I have a question. How does the size of these lots compare to the surrounding lots in that same neighborhood?
Go ahead.
They are of similar compatibility. I know some of the lots within the area were a little bit more narrower, but in general, they do comply with our residential component, in which the lots meet that minimum requirement of at least 7,200 square feet. The lot one where the existing home is, that one's about 10,000 square feet, and that's just because that's how the lot is currently. That's how the home is currently developed, and they didn't want to impede on that existing home. So the lot 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, those properties are meeting the minimum requirement of the 7,200 square feet, which is comparable to what's already within the surrounding area.
I see. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you say that that was something that the developer took into consideration, or is that something that the city staff required them to do?
That's something that the developer took into consideration when proposing the subdivision of the site, because they didn't want to
Be
affect
looking into other people's yards and so forth.
Yes, that is correct.
Well, I commend that, because I know we have had in the past a recent one that we didn't approve here, and I understand did approve when it was appealed, when the staff was asking for a variance change because of 6 units that were going to be, and we had residents here complaining that they felt that they were losing privacy because this was a 2-story and they were going to be looking. That is why I asked the question, so I commend the developer for taking that consideration. I would have preferred that staff would have come up with that consideration, but thank you.
Any other comments on this item? If not, I will actually close public hearing. And I will entertain a motion for item number 4.
I'd like to make a motion approving agenda item number 4.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations. And moving on to item number 5. If we could have the staff report.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly introduce our consultant from MIG who's been working with me on getting the sign regulations together. We promised you a couple of months ago that we were going to have a draft for you, so we wanted to make sure that you had plenty of time to review that, as it is a somewhat lengthy document. And we have 2 pieces. We have the sign code, the comprehensive sign code update, and then the amendment to Chapter 19.20 for property development standards, just to add in an additional graphic and some detail about traffic safety site area, which was present in the development code previously, but was just a little too vague, and we wanted to clarify that issue a little bit. Genevieve Sherrill is from MIG, and she's going to make this presentation for you. We'll both be available for any comments or questions that you have.
Good evening, Commissioners. And thanks, Chantal. So, like Chantal said, I'd like to give you kind of a brief overview of the process to date and the kind of thick packet and dense packet that you received, to give you an overview of what the changes are to the sign regulations as proposed. So what is the point of signs in the first place? We really need signs to attract and draw customers to our local businesses, create sales for our businesses. It's a marketing tool. It's an economic development tool. It helps build brand recognition, provide identification. It's a safety mechanism to help folks get around into the right destinations. But it really does affect the look of the community, how signs are regulated, as well as how they're implemented. So here's an example of some very ineffective signage. Signage that can be overdone can be very ineffective because you can't actually see what you need to see to get to a destination. And on the opposite side, it can be really ineffective if you can't see it just because it's too small. It's poorly sized for the space that it's supposed to be located. So what we endeavor to do with this update is to try and find the right scale, the right size, and the right standards for San Bernardino to reflect the community and to enhance economic development. When we started this program update, we went in with the intent to really streamline the sign regulations to be clear and user-friendly. The code hadn't been updated in a very long time, and when it had been updated, it was in a piecemeal fashion, which can lead to some inconsistencies and some difficulties in interpretations. So what we wanted to do was really streamline that, make it as clear as possible with clear language, graphics, and make it easy for staff to understand and for folks at the counter and anyone who needs a sign permit to understand what they need to do. We also wanted to comply with legal requirements. There was a case about 3, 4, 5, it's getting longer ago, but it seems like it was just yesterday, the town, Reed versus the town of Gilbert, which really kind of changed how cities need to regulate signage. And we need to really think about signs in terms of not regulating them from a content perspective. So we shouldn't have to read the sign in order to regulate it. We should be able to regulate the size, where it's located, how long it's out, but not have to read it, so not regulate the content of the sign. So that's the other focus that we did in this update. And we also wanted to address any emerging issues that were coming up in San Bernardino, in the region, and just in the sign industry in general. So we got some great input with local stakeholders. We talked to this commission back in December 2016 and got the commission's input on what they really wanted to see, wanted to see out of the update. We also talked with businesses and stakeholders, sign companies, local businesses, representatives from the chamber, who were really able to tell us where the code wasn't working, what were their priorities, and we got some great feedback from them that helped us to focus the update. So we took all of that update from the commission, from the stakeholders, and from our best practices, and developed a draft code. In August 2017, we went back to that business community that was so insightful in the first meeting and test drove the draft with them. So we went through, we walked through the draft with them and said, does this work? Where is it missing something? And we were able to mark up and make some changes. Then we brought this back to the Planning Commission for some final feedback in October 2017. So we had a pretty refined draft at that point. The city staff had multiple management changes, as well as a reorganization of the department, as well as changing the legal staff that we needed to re-review. So there's been a gap here, but we're bringing it back with a little bit more refinement. We were able to take it one more look at it with the new management structure in the Community and Economic Development Department. We refined it. We tightened the code a little bit more to bring this final version for your review. So what we heard from the stakeholders overarchingly was that we want to have a mechanism to try and promote good design. But at the same time, we understand that some folks are on limited budgets, and we want to be able to support those small mom and pop businesses in their sign needs as well. So we wanted to develop some clear criteria to encourage good design. We wanted to address emerging trends. The business community talked about what we call lifestyle graphics. These are kind of tall wall kind of signs, and to allow for different kind of creative signs that might just kind of be out of the ordinary, but really can have a big impact on a business as well as a community. And how temporary signs are regulated, that also came up a lot with the stakeholders. But kind of overall, one of the key takeaways was that folks really wanted flexibility. They wanted clear regulations, but they wanted some flexibility to be able to complete their project when difficulties came up. And they wanted a very easy-to-use code. So we did some reorganization of the existing code to streamline it and try and make it as clear as possible. So some sections were completely removed, new sections were added, and you have the whole packet before you. We started with a purpose statement, which some of the case law precedent tells us is pretty important to have a very clear purpose statement that this commission and the staff, as they're making sign decisions, can go back to. So we have kind of multiple purpose statements in the code that you can go back to and help make findings based on. The next section is on applicability. Where do these regulations apply? And this section has a lot of things that are intended to make sure that you are consistent with First Amendment rights and that you are really regulating based on a time, manner, and not a content basis. We added a severability clause, which means that if a certain portion of the sign code is found to be not legal, the rest of the sign code can still stand. And we clarified what signs were exempt from permits entirely. So some of the best practices in response to case law is also to kind of limit and streamline your exempt signs to make sure that you're not treating a certain sign differently than another. So we focused on that in the update as well. The next section is kind of general requirements. So we give the overarching, laying the groundwork early on in setting the code, clarifying legal specifics about content neutrality, message substitution, and also talking about what materials folks can use and how to maintain their signs to meet the code, which will help code enforcement to have something to point to in the code as well. We also added a section on sign illumination, which hadn't been there, and also clarified sign measurement. So for instance, this new measurement regulation says that you'll measure with 12 corners. So it allows for a little bit more flexibility for different shaped signs, which may be more interesting, more creative, or just identify with a business but more accurately and allow for that type of signage. We identify prohibited signs in Section 4. In this sign, we specifically prohibit pole signs. The previous code kind of allowed them, but really what we were allowing in the past was pylon signs, and that's what we really want to encourage. So the pole signs with just the exposed pole those signs can stay, they'll be legal non-conforming, but no new pole signs would be permitted. We also would want to prohibit signs that emit sound, odor, or smoke. And for instance, sound came up from our stakeholder meetings as kind of a new evolving thing that's happening, and we want to kind of get ahead of that. Digital window signs also came up in our stakeholder interviews, that it was a concern, it's hard to regulate the brightness of that kind of sign, and that we wanted to prohibit those as well. We also revised, in the past, no portable A-frame signs have been allowed in town, but there was support for A-frame signs in the downtown area, so those would be allowed in the Main Street overlay zone. We also added a new section called Design Principles, and this goes back to what the stakeholders were talking about with regard to high-quality design, and something for staff and the commission to make findings based on. So looking at architectural compatibility, the local context, how legible it is, if it's readable, the visibility, and graphic interest as the design principles that will be the foundation of good design. We also have a new sign permit section. So the sign permit section adds a lot of findings, again, to make it easier for making decisions. It also adds a new process for an identification decal. And this came up in meetings with the business community as well, as a way to track to make sure that a sign was actually permitted, and for code enforcement to recognize if it's not. So if you see a new sign go up and it doesn't have the little identification decal, it wasn't a permitted sign, and it's an easier process to be proactive for code enforcement. We also made a clear table about who's responsible for what as far as review goes, if it's director level or if it goes up to planning commission for a discretionary review. We also added a director level discretionary review for a minor sign area modification, and this again came up from the stakeholder meeting, where folks, they often talk about it in terms of a corporate logo that needs a modification because it doesn't fit, but it doesn't necessarily seem fair to allow that for corporate logos and not for any other, non-incorporated logo. So what we proposed was a 10% deviation, which kind of seems to fit with precedents as far as where folks were asking for deviations for something that just wouldn't quite fit within a wall sign regulation. So that new modification process is established with director review and findings that the director has to make in order to approve that. There is also proposed a new creative sign permit, and so this kind of gets to the tall wall, to the different kinds of signs, so kind of out-of-the-box signage that we were hearing was a possibility and is kind of emerging in the industry, to allow for a deviation from standards if they can meet kind of very clear findings about extremely high design quality and relevance to the local context, either San Bernardino, historical related, or for design of the site and the business. There's also a new iconic sign permit. San Bernardino has some great iconic signs still around, and this allows kind of an option or an incentive to preserve those signs. So that sign area and any iconic sign would be exempted out of the rest of their sign area, so they can preserve that sign and add another sign that would match their business. We also set some new standards for the comprehensive sign program. In the past, it was pretty loose in the existing code. It says there is a sign program, but it doesn't really clearly say when it's required, what it means, what are the standards. So we established those standards in this draft, and also embedded some flexibility within the sign program to allow for kind of a sign budget, meaning that you could trade some of your sign area that is listed under the code for a wall sign for a monument sign or the other way around. So you could have a bigger wall sign but a smaller monument sign. And we talked to this Planning Commission back the second time we met with you to talk about what that appropriate amount was. Was it 20%? Was it 50%? And this group decided 50% seemed like a good amount to allow for that flexibility for folks. And the sign program would also allow for a deviation from standards of up to 20%. So as far as permanent signs go, we reorganized that chapter quite a bit, but the standards themselves didn't change too much. So we've provided flexibility more through the processes than kind of blowing out the sign area to be a much larger sign area. So it allows for a bit more discretion on making those determinations. We reorganized the chapter. Before it outlined the commercial office zone, and now we've chunked everything commercial, industrial, public. The industrial uses do have some different uses. We heard a lot about how trucks need to maneuver and the signage on walls and the size of, you know, some major buildings and small signs on those looking kind of silly. So those two zones or groups of zones are how it's organized. With regard to wall signs, that was a concern as well. There was a limit on the number of wall signs, which was becoming a problem, especially for, you know, you'll see Stater Brothers with the bakery and the Wells Fargo's in there, and having all of those different signs in one place, but they weren't able to actually sign for all of those things because there was a limit of 2 signs. So we removed the number of signs, but kept them constrained within the sign area. So within the maximum sign area for a building, they can decide how many signs they need to serve their business. We've also allowed for additional directional and parking lot signs, especially in industrial zones, as we heard that was an issue. We've also clarified certain specific types of signs, canopy signs that kind of sit on top of an awning, like a hard awning, digital signs, pylon signs, with a specific limitation on the number of divisions or sign areas so that you don't have 152 different businesses that you can't read the signs for. We also developed standards for specific uses. Drive-thrus have an extra sign area allowed for menu boards. Service gas stations have extra area allowed for their canopies and at islands. And then freeway proximate uses as well. We clarified that. That came up with stakeholders as well as a key need. So we clarified where those are allowed within the freeway overlay zone. With regard to temporary signs, we clarified this section and made it as content neutral as possible. We added some standards, including size and number, as well as setback and distribution as well. Section 9 is on general advertising or billboard signs, and this pretty much carries forward your existing regulations and the general prohibition on any new billboards unless they are relocating or replacing 6 other billboards. The 5-foot setback requirement was removed because it is regulated by Caltrans pretty significantly, and the locations where these would be allowed are limited to freeway or city-owned properties. Non-conforming signs have their own section, and it clarifies that they may be retained but must be maintained, and it also establishes a process for non-conforming sign modifications. So if you have a non-conforming sign on your property, how you can go through modification to put up a different sign copy on that non-conforming sign. With regard to enforcement, there's a section that refers to other chapters of the municipal code. You might see some highlights in this section in your staff report, and those are highlights because we want to coordinate some more with the city attorney's office as they've been doing some updates to the enforcement sections of the municipal code, and we want to make sure that those are the same and we are not having 2 different processes. So we're working with the city attorney's office on that. Signs on public property are generally prohibited. This code presents the intent as to a public forum so that folks who are peacefully protesting with a sign and an attended sign holding it have that right, and that's clearly laid out in the sign code. We also allow for encroachment for projecting signs that would project over the right-of-way. And we refer to Title 16, which talks about street banners in the downtown area. We also very much enhance the definitions section with new graphics, new definitions to try and very clearly outline what is being regulated in the previous sections. So I know it was a lot to read through, and so we have some more time to look at those, and we're here for any questions and look forward to another hearing with this body in January to discuss it again. But Chantal and I are here for any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Amelia?
I have a question. Did you say early on in your presentation that businesses were invited to meet, give feedback and content? Can you tell me how many businesses in the city of San Bernardino attended these sessions?
I have that in my notes if you want to wait just a second.
Sure. Bring all your notes up. I have other questions.
We had a great group, and Commissioner Queel was at both of the meetings as well. We met in a group, and we had I'm just picturing it right now. We met in a circle, like a big circle. It felt like 15, 20 people about.
What I would like to know, I guess more than the number, is what the businesses represented, what types of businesses. Because, I mean, you're talking about some of our large mainstay businesses like Stater Brothers, Quill Signs, and so forth. Did we get any alcohol, convenience, liquor stores, some of the ones that...
No liquor stores were represented. So we did have a few of the local sign companies. We had a few of the representatives from some of the local automobile dealerships, the large ones along the freeway.
Businesses, in other words, it sounds like businesses who invest good money in putting up a sign.
Right.
But we also have, because my understanding is that all of this has come about because we have had businesses abusing or the city wasn't enforcing. In other words, the smaller businesses that have no money for a large sign but are making their own signs, covering up all the windows, not taking down old signs, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Well, that was one of many reasons, actually, why we decided to update the code. And to the extent that we can have influence over that, our intent was really just to make the regulations a little bit clearer to understand for both our code enforcement officers, for the public, for ourselves, and for businesses, so that we could easily point to, well, this is the regulation you need to follow, and so on and so forth. In terms of enforcement, some of that just has to do with the number of code enforcement officers that we have actually representing the city.
Well, I would agree that was one of the reasons for,
yes,
because
that was one of many.
I understand the overall is to help market, promote, we want our businesses to thrive and so forth. But it is an important part because it borderlines blight and the appearance, especially when some of these stores are located in low-income areas. I mean, just take Baseline, for instance. It's literally on top of each other, liquor stores, convenience stores, small markets, and they all don't fit any sign standard, that you're trying to promote and so forth. So even though it's only one, I still think it's an important one. That's why I was asking, because it didn't seem. And my observation has been that many of the operators or owners of the stores may come from a different cultural background or language background or whatever, and don't seem to comply. I don't know why. They know the law, but they think they can get away with it, or they're not complying, or they're just doing the best they can. The other, and so I really think we need to talk to those people whenever this is finalized, because I think we do want to bring them on board. We do want them to comply. But if we're not getting their feedback or addressing their needs or concerns, because they're also the same as Stater Brothers. They all are looking at the bottom line. The other thing is, I didn't see a component on there, and maybe it's in there, but I missed it, for educating the people the businesses that are coming, either at this point when they apply, or when they get a permit, a license, or whatever.
Respectfully, staff needs your help with that, honestly. We don't quite have the staff to do the amount of legwork that it would take to educate the entire business community. We would love to, but insofar as it is your role as the planning commissioner to represent, a specific area within the city or the entire city, actually, we do actually need your help with that. If you can help us with that. But what we can do as staff is to provide the clarification and make the standards as easy to understand as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were intending.
Well, then invite me to your next community meeting for input and so forth, because I understand that, about staffing and all of that. But it still needs to be done, and we need to find a way to do it, because the bottom line for all of us, residents or whatever, is to not have signage blight, that's what I call it, and have the businesses thrive and the residents feel good about, those things and so forth. So we have to find some creative way, somehow that maybe isn't so labor intensive, but still helps us to get the word out.
We're open to suggestions.
All right, well, invite me to your next meeting.
Thank you.
I would like to also comment that working with you and your staff on this project has been rewarding, informational. We've looked at a lot of different opportunities for businesses coming into the area. And however, like Commissioner Lopez mentions, the problem that we see and that we hear from the community is the blight. And it's the non-conforming abandoned signs. You will see properties that are demolished and completely vacant lots with the sign still standing on that lot. And code enforcement should be doing that job. There was, back years ago when we had another mayor, there was a ordinance that the signs would be removed and the price to remove them would be attached to the property, a lien on the property. Also, the decal idea is perfect because there are so many illegal signs being put up with total disrespect to the code. It makes it easier for a code officer to recognize whether a sign is legally installed and permitted. But also there is Business Professional Code, State of California, the inventory and abatement program. I didn't see that addressed in this. I know we talked a little bit about it. But to make everybody clear or understand, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, so what Commissioner O'Queel is referring to, the Business and Professions Code, says that that a city may put forth if a standard is reduced for signs or requiring certain signs to be removed, you need to do an inventory citywide of all of those signs prior to implementing any requirements for removal. And so many codes that were updated 20 years ago just kind of relayed that forward, and then no one did it because it's very time-consuming and very expensive. So I don't know of a single jurisdiction that actually did that inventory. So it was something that was put into the Business and Professionals Code, and now it's quite often stymieing cities to be able to reduce any standards.
Yes, I agree. A lot of cities looked at it. A few of them attempted to do it. Our city of San Bernardino did an inventory 20-some odd years ago, and whatever became of that, I don't know. There was an abatement program. It worked for a little while, but it went by the wayside. But so what that means is the code does look at when you're going to change your code to have a respect for the existing signs and so on. And I think the way they're setting this up in this code looks very good. What is very beneficial is the 12-point measuring device you have for the wall signs and the square footage. Most cities are less than that, so I think that's a really good move. So, thank you.
I also have a comment. So some of the signs that are up and everything that aren't following code and what you're proposing, those aren't going to be grandfathered in, correct? They will be given notice, kind of like, this isn't following the rules, can something be done, or
So
how would that
anything
work?
that is currently up to code that will be called legal nonconforming if it doesn't comply with what we're allowing now. So those would be allowed to stay in perpetuity as long as they are maintained. But if something is up right now and it's illegal, if it was put up in violation of the existing code or a future code, that's considered illegal. And again, that falls on code enforcement, which, barring lots of funds for code enforcement, is a reactive kind of code enforcement. So if you or the community members do see it, they're welcome to call and voice that particular complaint so that a code enforcement officer can go out and actually do something about it.
Perfect. Also, there are some, as Commissioner Amelia was saying, that some are kind of painted onto walls and everything. Those aren't following, I think, any standard, or correct?
So what we added into this code is and the painted signs, they're tricky because a lot of folks don't have adequate funds to pay for an expensive sign, and if painted signs are done well, they can look great. So what we put in is that they were professionally applied. So we're trying to encourage folks to take a responsible step with their signage, to apply it professionally, and so that it's heightening the design quality.
On that note, we've also had a lot of the big like chain corporations have been wanting to increase the number of painted signs that they have for special logos and things like that that are very professionally designed, and so we do want to allow that, but have some standard for it.
Yes, I'm just recalling on the corner of Orange Show Road, right across from, I guess, electric or the water department, like that. There was a stereo kind of place, and it was just painted on, and you could see kind of people's hands.
I'm pretty sure there was no permit.
Yes. And then on that same kind of note, is there any kind of ordinance as well for like the window ones? I know for the holidays, it's kind of nice, it's a little festive. However, some do use that as their signage or their menus, and it doesn't always seem very nice.
Yeah.
Very cluttered.
The way that it's currently regulated and that's carried forward is that window signs are considered an exempt sign as long as they do not, so they don't have to get a sign permit, as long as they don't take up more than 25% of the area of the window. So the intent is that police and everyone else can see in and out of the store at all times.
And that regulation is actually pretty consistent with most of the local municipalities within the Southern California area.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
What you're talking about is all said and good. I talked to one of the major code enforcement officers several weeks ago, and we're down to, I believe, 3 code enforcement officers today, and we don't even have a commercial code enforcement officer. So, I mean, we can set up all we want and all agree to it, but the vehicle to enforce it is very, very slim.
It is. On that note, however, I think that it's important for us to still make sure that our regulations are up to date and meet all of the legal justifications that we're required to make, because of recent case laws that have happened, and to make the regulations as easy to understand as they are to follow.
Well, also to support that, that gives them a vehicle to enforce, which is more defined rather than vague. So that's a good way of putting it.
Right.
Thank you.
I just have a quick comment. I just wanted to thank you, Genevieve and Chantel, and the rest of the staff and MIG for putting together this new ordinance. I know we've been working on it for a while. When I recently became a new commissioner here in 2016, this is one of the first major agenda items that I was able to participate in and go to some of the special meetings that we had back when Mark was here, and really got a chance to get involved on a very integral level as far as with what we want to see and what type of a sign program we want moving forward in our city. And I think that some of the comments the commission and you guys have shared as well are some of the big concerns that this new sign ordinance will address, especially with the blight and sort of cleaning up the community and making the aesthetics more pleasing for our residents. So I just want to thank you all for the hard work that you guys have put forth, and I'm looking forward to seeing this come to fruition moving forward. So thank you all.
Us too. Thank you.
With that, can I ask what the next step is?
So next step is we will be finalizing just the final pieces in terms of appeals, enforcement, regulations that have been updated in the municipal code. We're working with legal on that. And then our hope is to present the final draft to you in January to either, with a recommendation to move to City Council from that point for adoption.
And I do have one last question. You were mentioning that with our help, we could help educate. In what way could we help to kind of push this forward, make sure that it is enforced and that it is followed?
So I'm available anytime. Any of you are available during the work week to come in if you want to sit down and actually go through all the different regulations. If you have specific questions about, a location that maybe you're not sure if they're in compliance or not, and you want to go and talk to that business and maybe educate them a little bit, I can show you what areas of the code to point to, so that you're able, since you're out there, kind of talking to different people and business owners in the city, then that would be a great word of mouth for us to kind of help and educate. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question. Since I just joined the council, probably this is my third meeting here, and I'm looking at the update that was sent. If I wanted to get more information, like let's say from the 2016 or 2017 meetings, would I be able to take a look at that somehow, some way?
We do have a few of the previous staff reports that had varying versions of the code and some of the different information that was talked about at some of the meetings. I can gather that information for you.
And I think that the minutes and the video should be up online. You could watch the video, right?
Okay.
Right. I think that'd probably be the easiest.
All right. And then is it too late for, let's say, some of the businesses, you said when you had the I guess the round table, the group that of about 15, is it too late for anyone else that wanted to be involved in that if we did come across business owners?
We would have to most likely take more time and actually more money, so that means we would have to take it back to City Council to ask for additional funds so that we could have those additional meetings, because we basically are funding the project based on the scope that we have been working on from the beginning. We've adjusted it a little bit from here, from what we started with, but being that this process has already taken a little bit more time than we had anticipated because of some of the restructuring that happened within our department. We do wish to, and we know that the City Council would like to see this wrapped up as soon as possible. It's not an impossibility to take it back, but it's something that we feel isn't quite necessary, and we'd like to avoid that at this point.
Got it. All right, and then let's see. Well, I just kind of wanted to see, I had a little bit of, well, in regards to the pole signs, I just wanted to know why would the pole signs were going to get completely removed?
They're just generally regarded as kind of ugly.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. It's a pretty standard thing for them to be prohibited in most codes. It's not current practice to put up a new pole sign.
Okay. And A-frames. Those are going to be allowed in the downtown area, but not downtown?
Right. So allowing them in the downtown area was kind of intended because a lot of the businesses, and especially, once we see what happens with Carousel Mall, the intention is really to make the downtown a little bit more of a walkable neighborhood. That means kind of bringing the buildings in a little bit. Right, so you don't have as much, large areas in front of the buildings for parking and large sidewalks and that sort of thing. You'll have a walkway, an area where you might be able to put up, a sign for like a nice little brew pub or something like that, a sandwich board for their daily menus. But we wanted to limit it to that area because that's what we're focusing on, the type of activity that we'd like to promote in the downtown, rather than just having, Joe's Tires put up a bunch of A-frames for all the specials that they have for the day.
Right.
And so the code clearly states that if you are going to be putting it in the public right-of-way, you need to get an encroachment permit from the city to do that. But you could put it on your property otherwise. It has to be brought in at night. That was a concern that we talked about with the business community because they really liked the idea of it, but wanted to make sure it didn't become a clutter kind of thing.
Got it. All right. Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Chantel, I'd just like to emphasize that at the beginning of the meeting, at the meetings that we were having a couple years ago, it was announced at the Chamber of Commerce, and that businesses that had some concerns attended the meetings. We had real estate people attend the meetings. We had an architect. We had a couple sign users, and then we had sign companies, and we also had the billboard industry there.
That's right.
So it was attended by a lot of people that use signs and people that manufacture signs. So it was a really good meeting.
It was a fairly diverse crowd. Obviously it was not all the many hundreds of businesses, that we have in the city present, but it kind of represented a pretty diverse group of people that are affected or impacted by signage.
All right, reemphasizing what Commissioner Jones said, thank you guys so much. This looks good, and we look forward to the next step in January and hearing kind of those final touches and everything. All right, perfect. All right. So going to Planning Commission reports and announcements. Do the commissioners have any reports or announcements they would like to make? I do actually have one. I put little flyers around. Tomorrow there is going to be a festival at the Lido Creek Park. It'll be from 4:30 to 8, and it's for the kids. They'll have a movie showing. They'll have popcorn and cotton candy. The firemen will be there. They'll be preparing hot dogs. We'll have the police there on horseback. There'll be jumpers, and it's basically just an event to kind of welcome the holidays and bring kind of holiday spirit to the area. So at the end, they're having the Ho-Ho Parade and at the park, and they'll have pictures with Santa and the different characters. So if you know anyone that has children, the event is completely free to them. So you guys are more than welcome to come and have fun and open the holidays. If no one else has any announcements, if we could get the director's report.
We don't have any new items to announce, but I do want to wish everyone a happy holiday. And we had a good year, I think. We had a few projects here, and I was looking at our kind of our resolution numbers. I think we're in the 70s now. So if you take that in consideration, the commission here has approved or has reviewed at least 70 some odd projects over the course of the last 12 meetings. So We're looking forward to 2020. Happy holidays. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to adjourn this meeting. If I could have the Planning Commission will adjourn. The next meeting will be for Tuesday, January 14th at 6 p.m. If I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No? Okay. Happy holidays, everyone.